Welcome to Golf Channel Academy. I'm your host, Martin Hall. I'm in Shreveport, Louisiana, and of course I'm joined by major champion Ryder Cup player David Toms. Great to be with you, David. We're going to talk putting to start with. We're at your fantastic practice facility. You proud of this?
Very proud, and it's a good place to work on putting for sure.
Well, let's get going. Now,
Right.
normally you would warm up with just 2 golf balls, but for the purpose of television, we've given you more than that. But just before we get going, you like to practice with a longer putt here. This one's 45 feet. That's how you start. So you start the longer putt with 2 balls. Can you talk me through that so the viewers can understand it?
Well, the idea for me is to, my first putt's on a putting green, either even if I'm just practicing putting or I'm about to go out to play, it's more for me that it's a warm-up, just like I would be full swing warm-up. So I want to start with a long putt, and the reason I do that is so I don't necessarily have an expectation of making it. I'm just trying to get a feel for the speed of the green, also which way the grain is, what that's going to be like for the day, and also just kind of get my stroke warmed up and get my feet underneath me on the putting green is really what I'm doing. So it looks something like this. I think this is about a 40-foot putt, and I got a feel, and just as I can see it's going to break a little right, and I'm just trying to make a stroke. So haven't been here in about a month or so at the practice facility. Obviously, I think this green's a little faster than it was the last time I was here, so I ran it by a little bit. But for me, I'm just trying to get a feel for the grass and just make a nice stroke. Try to get the speed right. So when I go to the golf course, I feel like if I'm on the first hole and I've got a 30-footer, I know the speed of the green, and I can make a nice aggressive stroke and feel like I know what the speed's going to do. Now, this was an uphill, into the grain, left to right breaking putt. So the next thing I would do is go take those balls, putt back across the green to this spot. So now I've got an uphill into the grain feel, and then I've got a down grain downhill feel.
Should we go and do that?
Yeah, let's go do that. Now I'm here. I'm just going to putt on this direction, actually to the fringe. So I want to see how close I can get to the fringe without actually going into the fringe. So I'll turn and go this way.
That is a very, very good drill.
Sure, it is. And again, just trying to get a feel for the speed.
Questions that I would have, that perhaps a lot of the viewers would have. What do you think about practice swings for putting to get the pace? Is that something you do?
You know, I'm a big believer in that if you're going to have a practice stroke, which not everybody does. I mean, you watch PGA Tour golf on the weekend, and some guys have a practice stroke, some guys have 3 or 4, some guys don't have one. I think it's whatever your routine is, you need to stick with that. But if you're going to have a practice stroke, to me, it needs to mimic the speed and distance that you're going to hit the putt. I see so many folks, especially in amateur golf, taking, they'll have a 6-foot putt and their practice strokes are like this, which would hit it 50 feet. Or you've got a 30-footer and you've got a stroke that's just nice and smooth, but oh, by the way, that's only going to go 6 feet. So if you're going to take a practice stroke, please make a stroke that's going to be similar to the speed and the distance that you have to hit the putt.
Okay, great stuff. So you warm up with about a 30 or 40-footer, nothing
Correct.
too regimented. Let's talk a little bit about what David Toms thinks putting fundamentals are.
Right.
Let's go back to our 45-footer. Grip pressure for you?
That's the big thing, is whatever pressure that you have, maintain it throughout the stroke. I know that some folks like to grab it very tight because they feel like that, they have the most control that way. Some really loose. I'm probably somewhere in between, but my main thought is to maintain that grip pressure the whole time. Another thing that's key for me is I try not to be too rigid. In other words, I'm not saying, oh, I've got to keep my body still, I've got to keep my head still. One of the reasons I move my head a little bit, I'm so right-eye dominant that I can't keep my head still and look under a putt this way. I can't see a line. So I'm a lot like Crenshaw in the fact that I'm always looking this way at the line because of my right eye trying to see the line. So on a putt like this, I'm not worried too much about how still I'm going to be. you know, I'm moving my head a little bit across the line that way so I can see it. And then I have a fairly long stroke, and it looks something like that. So,
David, that's fascinating information. We
Right.
have to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to move in a little bit close to the flag, about 15 feet. We're going to change the target, and we're going to talk a little bit about how David Toms learned to putt growing up on slower Bermuda-type greens. Don't miss this. It is fascinating. We're back with David Toms, winner of 17 tournaments around the world, one of which, of course, was the PGA Championship. You rascal, you just knocked that one right in. Now, beautifully done. It seems you might have done this before. We've now moved to about 15 feet away from the hole, and we've got a breaking putt. So talk us through your thoughts on that, please, David.
well, I think it goes back to, you know, many years ago when I asked our club pro at Palmetto Country Club growing up, how do you read putts? He said, well, there are a lot of factors. One of them is the grain, one's the slope. But if you don't really know, he said, just pour a bucket of water on the green and see which way the water runs off. And that's the way the putt's going to break. And so when I walk up to a green, that's the first thing I look at is I look at the surroundings. Where does the water run off? Because that way I kind of know where the slope is, overall slope. And then I know what the grain's going to do. And so I have those two factored into it. So then when I get ready to actually read my putt, no matter what side of the hole I'm on, I already have those factors figured out. And then I kind of go by what I feel under my feet, you know, and when I put the ball down, is it below my feet? Is it above my feet? And then what does it do around the hole? Obviously, they're double breaking putts, but I try to pick that spot, commit to it, whether it's right or wrong, and putt with confidence.
The bucket of water, if we can just go back. So
Yeah.
you walk on the green and you drop this imaginary bucket of water. Do you drop it up by the hole to see where it's going there, or is it somewhere? Do you take more notice the closer the ball gets to the hole?
I take more notice around the hole because I feel like when I can get a feel with my feet, you know, what it's going to do around the ball. And certainly I know what that's going to be and what's that start line. But then where do I want this ball to approach the hole? I putt to what is called a zone, meaning I wouldn't be, if I had this putt here, I'm not necessarily focused on the left lip. I just kind of putt in a zone to where if I feel like I hit the right speed, you certainly, this might be left lip if it goes this far past the hole.
Yeah.
This might be a cup outside if it barely gets to it. I always like to putt to the highest spot of the break,
Right.
because usually when the three putt occurs is when your speed is off and it gets breaking low. Okay, if you come in from the high point, you can hit it harder, right? So you hit it harder into the break, and then you got that. You have more, you know, more time to, I guess you call it, recover from a bad putt. Whereas if you ever get it low and it's a little hard, it can really get away from you. So I get a break and I putt to a zone and try to get the speed right more than anything else.
Let's hit another one here, David,
Okay.
if you would be so kind, please.
All righty.
Beautiful rhythm there.
Oh, another. Hey, I like this putt.
People are going to think we fixed this. We didn't fix it, folks. I'm promising you. David Toms is on a roll. Now, when we finished the first segment, I teased that you were going to talk a little bit about growing up on Bermuda greens, slow greens, and the reason you don't have a short, choppy stroke, but quite a long, flowing stroke. I thought that was very interesting, so share more, please.
Well, to me, if you have an uphill putt into the grain, I think people that have a little short stroke, they always feel like they can't get the ball to the hole. So when I grew up playing here in the South and locally at a club, that, you know, the greens were fine, but they were slow. I don't know what greens, we didn't even have a stimp meter. Didn't know what that was when I was 13 years old. You just knew, oh, the greens are slow today. And so I developed a stroke that was, you know, a little bit longer back for power. And, you know, some people might say, oh,
Stop it. Just stop it.
yeah, 3 in a row. That's good. But I just felt like that's the way I've always putted. Now, can it get you in trouble when you have really fast greens, or you have a 10-foot downhill left to right putt and you got this big, long stroke? Maybe so. But, you know, I know at times I've had to adapt a little bit based on what the conditions are. The week that I won the PGA Championship, of all things, my thought process that week, knowing that I usually had a big, long stroke, and I was having a tendency under pressure to kind of just glide and decel into the ball. My thought process that week was I wanted to feel shorter and then more down the line, with my stroke. And almost like you just kept the putter going. And for some reason, it really worked that week. And when I made the last putt on the 72nd hole, I had a little downhill putt from about 10 to 12 feet. And all I thought about was, nice stroke, continue to the hole, and it started on the line and went right in the middle.
When we come back, we're going to talk about 8 and 10 footers like that one you hold at Atlanta Athletic Club, which I'm sure you will never forget. We're going to find out a little bit about that. Don't go anywhere. We're going to find out how to knock those ones in that you have to hold. We're back with David Toms at his magnificent academy in Shreveport, Louisiana. And he's talking about the 8 to 10 footer, the maintenance for the stroke. We know we hold that magnificent putt to win the PGA. But David, when you're in off-season, shall we say, getting ready for the season, what would you do, what would you recommend to people to do to get really spot on with his 8 to 10 feet? Because now we want to see them start to going in, don't we?
Oh, sure. Well, I think the main thing is to get very comfortable. Right? So whether it's that comfortable with your alignment, your stroke, your setup, or whatever it might be. If you watch me, my feet are open to the path or the line of the putt or the path of the stroke, but my shoulders are pretty square. And all that, the only reason I do that is because I'm trying to be able to see the line. Again, we go back to being right-eye dominant.
Yeah.
So if I get really closed, which you see a lot of people very, very square, when they're putting and kind of down here over the ball, I can't see the line from there. Okay, I make a decent stroke, but I can't see the line. So I'm up a little bit taller, feet open, shoulders fairly square, and just trying to get comfortable.
Well, has there been a point, you've mentioned it twice in this putting special of yours, you've mentioned right-eye dominant twice. Did someone point that out to you? Did you become aware of that? Was something you always instinctively knew?
Well, I grew up in sportsman's paradise in Louisiana, so that means that you like to hunt and fish. And so to shoot a gun as a young boy, if you're trying to shoot with your left hand and you're shooting left, you think you're left-eye dominant, but you can't hit the target, you soon find out that you're right-eye dominant and very right-handed. So I'm both. So not only am I right-eye dominant, very right-handed. To know what you see is very important, because then that way you can pick a different line and know what your tendencies are and be able to make more putts that way.
There's a lot of talk about tempo and rhythm right through the game, but certainly in the short game. Any thoughts on the cadence or the pace of your stroke? Is that something you feel, or is that something that came to you fairly easily?
As far as the tempo or rhythm in a putting stroke, compared to me, it's got to be similar to what your long game is. If I'm a guy that, like me, and I have a lot of rhythm and tempo in my stroke, as far as with the full swing 7-iron driver, I'm going to try to do the same thing in putting. Why would I want to be, short and quick with a putting stroke if that's not me? I'm trying to carry over from, make everything the same from when I tee off on the tee box all the way into the cup. And I try to maintain the same kind of rhythm and feel. And certainly I'm a rhythm putter as well.
One last thing before we break in this segment. You've played in President's Cups, Ryder Cups, major championships, top 10 player in the world for 175 consecutive weeks. Amazing. You've obviously held a lot of good putts. Do you have a routine that you're aware of when you putt? Do you have a routine that you stick to? Or do you change that up a little bit?
Well, I would say majority of my career, I have been one practice stroke. And again, that practice stroke has got to be the same type of stroke, rhythm, tempo, length, everything that I'm going to try to hit the putt with, because I'm trying to create, this stroke that I'm about to put on the ball to hold this putt. Sometimes the two things I'll do that different in the putting stroke as far as practice, sometimes I'll look at my target. If I'm having trouble visualizing once I'm over the ball, I'll make that practice stroke looking where I want the ball to start, and then I'll get over it and go. Or sometimes it's more about, okay, I'm looking more at the putter head and trying to feel that rhythm and tempo that I want to put on this stroke. So I'll go both ways, depending on what I'm maybe keys at the time.
So it's not one concrete pre-shot routine, it can change. David, fascinating, of course. Why wouldn't it be?
Right.
When we come back, we're going to talk about the ones you have to knock in, the sort of the 8, 7, 6, 5-footers, and we're going to lean on his vast experience to help you putt a lot better. We're back. We're talking about 4, 5, 6-footers now with David Toms at his fantastic golf academy. Talk us through how you might practice. Talk us through what you might think when you're playing. Talk us through what you see with amateurs in these many pro-ams you've played with.
First of all, this is a very important zone for putting because what it means is, okay, if this is for birdie, you just hit a great shot. And so you want to capitalize on that great shot. You don't want to, leave this stroke out there. You want to make your birdie. Okay, so from this distance, which is about 4.5 to 5 feet, I can see the bottom of the cup.
Right.
Okay? Or I can see, what now, is this a straight putt? Then I look at the back bottom of the cup. I can see it when I'm standing over this. Whereas you have a longer putt, you can't. So you ought to be able to visualize where this putt's going to go in the hole, where you're going to pick it up from, and everything else, rather than, focusing on something halfway or a different spot. If this is a straight putt, I can see the back bottom of the cup, and I'm just going to try to hit that spot. I'm a big believer in when you get to this distance, really shrinking that target. So I'm going to pick out a spot in the bottom of the cup. I'm going to look at the ball and I'm going to putt to that spot. Not thinking about stroke, not necessarily, even from here, I don't even have to think about speed that much. It's really about, oh, this is my target. I'm going to react to that target. I'm not going to worry about taking it straight back and straight through or a little bit of inside to inside. This is more about, okay, I see that target. It's small. I'm athletic. I can hit that spot. I don't care how bad the stroke is. I can somehow figure out how to get the ball from here to there in the cup. That's really what I focus on.
I think that's absolutely fascinating. A lot of players would say they suffer from lack of confidence at times with putts of this length. Any thoughts on that for the viewers at home?
The lack of confidence to me comes from the anxiety if you're going to make this or not. Or, oh, I have to make this, right? Really, I mean, just pretend this is on the 3rd hole and this is for par after your bunker shot. It's not any more important than it is than the 16th hole, right? This is just another 4.5-foot putt to save whatever score you're going to make on the hole. And to me, it's all about picking the spot, reacting to that spot, and knocking it in. Like I said, I'm not thinking about stroke. I'm not thinking about length of stroke, path of stroke. I'm not even really thinking about my setup or anything. I've practiced enough. I'm comfortable. I'm just going to say, oh, I can see where I need to hit this. It's kind of like driving a car. You kind of see in front of you where you need to go. You're not thinking about where your hands are on the wheel or, how much gas to give it. You're just going to go to that spot. And to me, that's the same thing with short putts. I mean, it's more of I see the spot, react to the spot. Don't worry about your stroke, how rigid you are. I got to keep my head still. I got to keep my body still. No, I just want this ball to go right there.
David, it's been wonderful being with you today. Thank you for giving so much back to the game. Thank you for being so gracious with us today. And thank you for watching. You're going to putt a lot better because of what you've just heard from David Toms. We'll see you next time